Which delivery app actually tips drivers the most? Well, let's find out. Hello everyone, this is Elijah with the Rideshare Guy, and in this video, we're actually going to be talking about what company among the delivery companies actually tip drivers the most. Now keep in mind that the delivery company themselves aren't actually paying you a tip. With that being said though, these said companies can make it very convenient for customers to tip you, and they can also create a culture that very much encourages it. So they do have some influence on whether customers are going to be tipping you or not, whether people want to admit that or not. Now, I have my own personal experience with said companies, which in this case are going to be Uber Eats, Doordash, Grubhub, and Postmates. But we're actually going to take a look at a study that was done by Solo, where they actually surveyed a bunch of delivery drivers in Seattle, asking exactly who tipped the most in their opinion based on data and just their earnings. So let's see exactly what they found out. So this article is written by worksolo. If you're interested in checking it out, you can do so by clicking on the link in the description. So which food delivery service tips the most in Seattle? So we scroll down and look at the info they were able to dig up. This is based on the first quarter in 2021. And we see for the most part, it goes like this. Grubhub tips the most, then Uber Eats, then Postmates, then DoorDash. And Postmates and Uber Eats, they switch from time to time. So see January, February, they switched. Then March, April, they switched back. So they're interchangeable though, since Postmates is owned by Uber Eats. So Postmates is kind of relevant to this discussion. So when we take a look at that data, that's the data that they're able to pull from the Seattle market. And when we scroll down, worksolo does a great job at illustrating why tips are so important, because based on the data that they're pulling, it's 45% of delivery drivers pay. Now, I actually think that's underselling it. I think if we were to do a national average, it might be more like 70 to 80%. But that's me just completely putting that number out there. I have no data to back that up. It's just how I kind of feel based on what I've been seeing in my market. I really feel like the customers are really subsidizing these rides, and hats off to them. But what do y'all feel about that? Do y'all think this number, 45%, is accurate? Keep in mind that this is just on Seattle, but in your market, what percentage of your pay is coming from tips? Do you feel it's close to 45%? Is it less? Is it more? Would love to hear your comments below. So with that being said, let's get into my personal experience and your experiences as well when it comes to tipping with these apps. Now that we've taken a look at what Solo had to say about this, I would love to hear your comments on which app do you feel tips you the most in the comment section. Now, for the sake of I guess, keeping things simple, we're going to make note that Postmates was bought out by Uber a little while back. So we're going to have to ignore the Postmates side of things, because if you order off of Postmates, it goes through Uber Eats app. So Postmates, sadly, is no longer a thing. So that leaves Grubhub, Uber Eats, and DoorDash. So in my experience, the numbers the Solo found versus my market are a little inverted to a certain degree. DoorDash is still at the bottom, but Grubhub and Uber Eats are actually shifted so that Uber Eats actually tips the most, Grubhub is in the middle, and DoorDash tends to tip the least. And I can't believe I'm actually saying that, because I started Uber Eats back in the days when they didn't have tipping on the platform. But one thing I always noted was when tipping wasn't available on the platform, I still got tips. Most people actually gave me a cash tip, so my market was willing to tip. They just couldn't do it in the app. When the in-app tipping was implemented, those tips just gradually started to switch from cash to being in the app. Even still, I will admit that Uber Eats customers in particular have been tipping a lot these days, really ever since the pandemic. That's not to say that DoorDash customers aren't tipping at all. It's just significantly less. And if I'm going to be honest, I see plenty of those $2 orders floating around, which I always decline. And we know the $2 orders is scenarios where the customer did not tip. But then we have to ask ourselves, are these companies doing everything that they could possibly do to encourage tipping? Well, let's actually take a look at that scenario, and then I'm going to share two things I think that all three of these companies could do to increase their tip game. But looking at DoorDash versus Uber Eats when it comes to tipping, one thing that Uber Eats does that DoorDash doesn't, which I think DoorDash should probably implement, Uber Eats has the ability for the customer to tip you after you actually place the delivery. Now, you might be wondering exactly why does that matter so much? Because they can actually increase your tip after the delivery too, up to 1 hour. So as you see on the screen, you see a couple of examples of instances where Uber Eats customers have actually increased my tip after the fact. So if they're feeling extra generous that day, or they really like the fact that you didn't hang around, you just dropped the food off and drove off. Because believe it or not, a lot of customers get annoyed if you hang around because they want to get their food, but for whatever reason, they may not want you to see them. So if you actually drop it off and go about your business, they appreciate it and they'll give you a little extra more. And no, I didn't make that up. I've seen scenarios where that happened to me, where I got a tip bump because of that. Now, it is a double-edged sword because they actually can lower the tip too, but I personally have not come across an instance where a customer lowered the tip on me. But I would say that they should probably just remove that feature and just have the option for them to tip more, but not withdraw a tip, because I think that's kind of stupid based on this scenario. But it is something I think the DoorDash should take note of. Give the ability for the customer to increase the tip after the fact. Once you tip on DoorDash, it's locked in. Now, with that being said, let's go into two things that all companies could implement to just increase overall tipping in general. This goes into making tipping more convenient and creating a culture that encourages tipping subtly, because you don't want to just jam it in their face because you don't want to annoy customers. But you want to also remind customers that tipping is highly encouraged. So the first thing I feel these companies could do to increase tipping subtly is to not hide the tipping screen after the customer finishes their order. So once the order is delivered, duration of time passes, except for on Uber Eats, they ask you immediately for some reason, which is a little weird. But at some point after the order is complete, these apps are going to ask you to rate your experience as a customer. I think that the first thing that should be asked is, do you want to tip your driver? Because not everyone is going to rate you, and not everyone really cares. But if they see the option to tip you, then they'll probably actually look at their phone, add a few dollars, or increase the tip, etc. This means that this would probably increase the amount of people that tip overall. And it's something that's not that hard to do. I really feel like the tip screen shouldn't be hidden behind the rating screen. If they really, really, really want to have the rating screen first, put them on the same page. So you could have, do you want to rate your driver? And then right under it have like, do you want to tip your driver? And it's all on the same screen. And the notification on your phone says, do you want to tip your driver? Not do you want to rate them? I think that would go a long way towards getting more people to tip. So I was going to give a second option, but I just realized I molded 1 and 2 into the same statement. So the first one was going to be don't hide the tipping screen after the order. And the second one was going to be notifying customers, asking them if they want to tip. So I think doing those two things would increase the amount of people that tips. And by doing that, it would increase the amount of tips that drivers receive, which is great for everyone. So what do you feel that these companies could do to encourage more tipping? And which app actually tips the most in your market? I'd love to hear that below. And if you're interested in signing up for DoorDash or Uber Eats, you can do so using the link in the description or in the pinned comment. That does it for this video. I'll catch you in the next one. This has been Elijah with the Rideshare Guy. If you found value in the video, be sure to give us a thumbs up. It's very much appreciated. Subscribe if you're new and hit that bell notification so you can be notified when we drop the next video. Catch you next time. Be safe, be profitable.